I don't want you to panic by looking at the number of ingredients that we have out today. I'm actually making a vegetable and pasta soup, and it requires a lot of ingredients and it requires a fair amount of simmering time, but it's something you can do ahead of time, and in fact I would encourage you to do it ahead of time because it's going to taste better if you manage to get it prepared one day and eat it the next. So what I have here is about, let me see if I can find my ingredient list, 1 cup of chopped onions. And pretty much everything is just going to go in the pot at one time, and then we're going to let it simmer for about an hour and a half. Also, about a cup of baby carrots. Now you could use regular carrots that you've cut into big chunks. I have 3/4 of a cup of sliced celery. You notice that nothing requires lots and lots of chopping here. And you can use preserved ingredients. I have a cup of frozen corn. That's going to go in along with, let me see, about 1 clove of garlic that's been chopped up. 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and if you want to cut back on the fat content, you can do so easily by reducing the amount of fat. Keep in mind, however, that a lot of nutrients, the fat-soluble nutrients, require some vegetable oil or some kind of fat in the same meal in order for you to absorb them better. The nutrients in the tomatoes, for instance, the vitamin E and so on, will require some of that in order to be best absorbed. Also, I've got a 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, or about a cup of tomato sauce. About 3 cups of diced tomatoes is going to go in there. You could use crushed tomatoes, you could use whole tomatoes that you chop up yourself. I have a cup of frozen green beans, and here you could use canned green beans. And because this is a nice soup, you can also begin to use your imagination at what vegetables you would like to see in here. If you like okra, if you'd like a little green pepper, all of those kinds of things could go in. A little bit of frozen zucchini could go in. I've got 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper, 1/2 a teaspoon of thyme, 1/2 a teaspoon of rosemary. Now rosemary, I want to crush up just a little bit here and get some of the aromatics loosened up. So I'm going to squeeze those a little bit, crush them in my fingers, or rub them in between the palms of your hands so that they start to let go of their flavors. Now this is going to cook for an hour and a half, an hour to an hour and a half, so it's going to be okay. And then we're adding a little bit of marjoram to that as well, about another 1/2 a teaspoon of marjoram. Now the liquid part of this, you have a couple of options, and what I'm going to do is I'm using 6 cups of beef stock. This is basically reduced sodium and fat-free, so it is going to add a lot of flavor. And in fact, the original recipe called for water, and water works very well and makes a flavorful soup, but this gives you more richness or more depth to the flavor. You could substitute other stocks. You could go back to plain water. You could use vegetable stock. You could use chicken stock. The beef stock makes it sort of reminiscent of a vegetable beef soup, and in fact, if you had some leftover beef, that could be added to this as well. We're going to stir this together, bring it to a boil, turn it down and let it simmer for an hour to an hour and a half, and then you're going to need to chill it down. Now by chilling it down, unless you're going to eat it right away, by chilling it down you want to fill a sink with cold water, throw in several ice cubes, quite a few ice cubes, put the pot in there and stir it as it cools down, and that will cool it quick enough that you will be able to produce something that's safe over the lifetime. If you just put the big pot in the refrigerator or put it in a big container, it's not going to cool down fast enough. You'll have a lot of microbial growth and the potential for foodborne illness will increase. After this has come back to a boil, this one is returned to a boil. It's been in the refrigerator for several hours to let the flavors come together and blend. One other thing I didn't put in the first one that I see in here, we've got 3 cups of chopped green cabbage. Just throw that one in as well and stir that together and bring it to a simmer. And when the vegetables are tender, it's pretty much ready to go. So if that occurs for you in 45 minutes or an hour and a half, whichever way you need to go. The last thing that we're going to put in here, I've cooked ahead 1 cup of macaroni. You could use penny pasta, you could use shells, you could use alphabets if it was kids. And we're just going to, because this is cooked ahead of time, we didn't want to add it early on because it would get too soft. You're just going to stir that in together, and when it is heated through, you're ready to go. Now one thing I would encourage you to do is cook the pasta just until it's barely tender. If it gives you 2 ranges of times, 7 to 9 minutes, make sure you might even go with 6 because it's going to cook a little bit more at this point. This soup then becomes something that is a great soup for a winter evening, for a winter afternoon, something that you're going to find that a lot of people in your family are really going to enjoy as the weather continues to cool down. Lots of vegetables, lots of deep flavor, and the flavor is there without adding a lot of extra ingredients to get that because we're using some of that beef stock. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.